5 years and 1 week ago today, when I pressed submit on my rabbinical school application, I did so with great trepidation. Not because I had only decided a few weeks earlier that I wanted to be a rabbi, but because I was scared I wouldn't get in, worried that I was missing something that every rabbi should have, a personal theology. I didn't know what God meant to me, and I had never really experienced a divine presence. I had just spent a lot of time reading about God in college. To me, God was a character about whom I wrote papers, not a present being with whom I had a relationship. Here's what I know now. I am not the only rabbi who struggles to have a personal relationship with God, and most definitely not the only Jew. Just turn to this week's Parsha, Ki Tisa, to find plenty of people yearning for a relationship with God. Let's paint the scene. Moses disappeared on Mount Sinai to convene with God, and he's been gone longer than expected. The Israelites grow restless. This is a people who watched God perform miracles regularly. The 10 plagues, the parting of the sea, manna, a big storm before giving the commandments. The Israelites are accustomed to a God who isn't just present, but who appears through grand gestures. And now, radio silence. So what do the Israelites do? They do what many of us might do when our comfortable reality suddenly changes. They panic. When the Israelites see that Moses is delayed, they approach Aaron saying, Kum, aseh lanu Elohim asher yalchu lefanenu. Arise, make for us an Elohim who shall go before us. Elohim usually means God, but the Israelites yearn for something to fill the gap, the gaping hole left by Moses' absence, something to repair their severed access to God. Scared and alone, vulnerable in the wilderness, the Israelites are desperate to be in relationship with God. So they build a golden calf, an idol to fill the void. In retrospect, 3,000 years of retrospect, it's easy to criticize the Israelites for this transgression. They just received the commandment, you shall have no other God besides me. You shall not make for yourself a sculpted image. There is no question their golden project was a major violation of God's command. Ramban is empathetic. He interprets their request for a new Elohim not to replace God, but, like I said, to be their new leader, replacing Moses and serving as their guide in Moses' absence. The Israelites create this vessel to try and access God. What they don't know is God is actually looking for something similar. Among the laws that Moses receives during his 40 days on the mountain are the blueprints for the Mishkan, or the tabernacle, a physical structure in which God will dwell amongst the people. But Moses doesn't make it down in time to stop the people from literally taking matters into their own hands, creating an idol referred to in Deuteronomy as ma'aseh yad, the work of their hands. The Israelites are grieving the perceived loss of Moses, who has served as their leader and conduit to God. In their moment of fear and uncertainty and loss, they act without a sense of groundedness and rationality. They crave connection, but they lack guidance for how to reach out to God in God's transcendence. Instead, they attempt to build a relationship, and it fails miserably. But the Parsha doesn't end before giving us another model in which for being in relationship with God that feels more sustainable, even if it's harder to attain. When Moses seeks to be close to God, he approaches God thoughtfully, communicating his desire for further depth. Moses and God have already established a relationship. Moses is a messenger to the people while confronting God on the people's behalf when they've gone astray. In Psalm 106, we learn God would have destroyed them had not Moses, God's chosen one, confronted God. Moses can speak openly and honestly with God. The two interact on level playing field, panim el panim, face to face, as one person speaks to another. Yet, Moses seeks to better understand God, pleading honestly and vulnerably, Im na matzati chen be'einecha, hodieni na et drachecha, ve'eda'acha leman emtza chen be'einecha. If I have truly gained your favor, pray, let me know your ways, that I may know you and continue in your favor. Hodieni na et drachecha, pray, let me know your ways. Unlike the Israelite people, Moses isn't asking God to be his leader or his redeemer. He's looking to simply know God on a deeper level, to be able to learn from God's ways. Moses asks to know more, and God responds with the description, Adonai, Adonai, a God compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in kindness and faithfulness, extending kindness to the 1,000th generation, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin, yet not remitting all punishment, but visiting the iniquity of parents upon children and children's children upon the 3rd and 4th generations. In this moment, God gains deeper knowledge of God. Moses gains deeper knowledge of God. In a moment of intimacy, almost vulnerability, he learns of God's greatest qualities and imperfections. Moses allows God to obstruct his view as God passes, letting himself be vulnerable in his lack of sight for just a moment. It is in this revelation that Moses is able to ask what his people could not. Moses bows before God and pleads for God's forgiveness and rededication to the errant people, an appeal the Israelites were unable to make for themselves, lacking a foundational relationship of trust and communication. Here's what we learn. The Israelite people messed up big time in the way they sought a relationship with God. In God's absence, they were bereft and attempted to summon God's presence, but instead crafted God's worst nightmare. They acted without communication, without intimacy, without seeking to actually know God, hungering instead for more miracles. While we can empathize with a people acting out of desperation, this is simply not how we ought to conduct ourselves. By contrast, Moses finds a moment to speak to God face to face, making clear his desires and asking with consent and curiosity to know God. He seeks a relationship rather than a way in which God can serve him. Only after God and Moses have established this more intimate relationship does Moses make his plea on behalf of his people. While Moses' approach isn't always easier, it's the pathway to a deeper and more meaningful relationship. Friends, I have some bad news for you. I'm not Moses, and neither are you. I do not have an intimate relationship with God that I can leverage to get God to show up for our whole community, or even just for myself. What I do have is 5 years of rabbinical school in which I've explored different theologies and ways to be in relationship with God. I have found most personally meaningful Martin Buber's idea that God can be found in relationships. By connecting deeply with others, we uncover sparks of the divine. In what Buber calls an I-thou relationship, we truly see other human beings on a deep level, bearing our souls and allowing ourselves to truly be known. Through these relationships, we gain access to something greater. Buber writes, every particular thou is a glimpse through to the eternal thou. We build these intimate relationships with friends when we speak honestly and vulnerably about our own lives and our differences. And now, too, as I enter the rabbinate, I uncover this beautiful depth through offering pastoral care. In serving college students seeking meaning and elders seeking answers, I've gotten to know people in every season of their lives more deeply. I am grateful to have found knowing relationships with my teachers and my mentors, my peers and my friends, my family and my loved ones, all of whom have brought me to where I am today. And the relationships themselves have become sacred and holy. It is with a growing comfort with my conception of the divine and the bountiful relationships I have built with other human beings, through whom I gain the spark of access to God, that I now prepare to graduate rabbinical school. And yes, I got it. As we seek our own I-thou relationships, let us aspire to communicate, learning how others want to be in relationship. Let us bring curiosity, seeking to know each other on a deeper level. Whether we hope to find the divine in our relationships or simply grow in the beauty of deep connection with other humans, let's seek that out, even when it's not the easiest option. Thank you. Please rise for Kaddish de Rabbanan. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'barach ve'olam ve'omayah. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal, shmei dekudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Al Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al Talmidei-hon, v'al kol Talmidei-hon, v'al kol man doskin be'oraita, di v'atra hadain v'di v'chol atar v'atar. Yehei lachon ulachon, shlama rabba, china v'chisda v'rachamin, v'chayin arichin umzona revicha, ufor kana min kodam avuhon divishmaya v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim tovim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Thank you.